At any rate, will clerk's office ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We'll call the meeting to order for the Lancaster County Correctional JPA Joint Public Agency for Tuesday, February 24th. Copy of the open meetings ordinance is posted at the rear of the hearing room. And Madam Clerk, will you begin the agenda, please?
Sure. The first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from November 25th, 2014.
So moved.
Are there additions or corrections? If not, call the roll, please.
Emery?
Yes.
Amundson?
Abstain.
Hudkins?
Yes.
Motion carries 2-0 with one abstention.
And
Item 2, or go ahead, Larry.
we welcome Roma to the joint board as our new chair of the Lancaster County Commissioners. Currently, I'm serving as chair. Doug Emery from the City Council is serving as vice chair, and Brent was serving as secretary treasurer. We do have the three offices, and Dennis, would you like to explain what the rotation has usually been?
Yeah, I think what's happened, I threw on the election of officers, just trying to figure out what we want to kind of do here. Over the years, it's usually been the chair has been the chair from the county board, the vice chair has been the chair from the council, and then the secretary treasurer has usually been the vice chair of the county board. The mayor is also on here, and the mayor's usually the he hasn't really wanted one of those positions. So that's kind of how it's worked. It's kind of up to you right now. We've kind of moved. Go ahead, Doug.
Can I make a recommendation that we hold this off to the next meeting? Only because
Of the new people
there will be
coming.
new people in there. This is my last meeting, and so it would be difficult. I'd hate to commit for whomever is in that position. I'd like to give them an opportunity to be here and at least speak for themselves. If that's
I don't think that should be a problem. I mean, we've got our chair and vice chair. We're now meeting quarterly.
Right. And
the next one will be.
We will still be in position until the next meeting,
Yes.
anyway. So.
And so I don't see a problem with that. I just kind of threw it on here, and then when I started thinking about it, most of the time, I think when we've had a change, we've maybe had enough change where we had to do something.
Right. Well,
So-
and Larry will be gone.
No,
You'll still be here.
still be here.
Right.
This
So-
position will be open, and it's likely to be Trent, but
Yeah.
I can't speak for the next city
Yeah, so-
council.
The consensus of the body that we wait for elections till the next quarterly meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Good point, Doug. Thank you. Approval of the claims through February 17th. Dennis, you want to go over some things with us? And I think you may have some claims that would
Right.
possibly be due before we meet again we
Yeah,
may want to
this-
handle.
This time, because we've changed to going to quarterly meetings, we've kind of come across a couple things. So what we've got here today is I've got two different lists. One is a list of the claims to be paid today, and that comes to be $91,323.31. I've also then got a list of what I call purchase orders / contracts. And what we're kind of finding out now with this meeting quarterly, we're getting some contracts that are set up, as well as Mike's gone through the bidding process and stuff like that, but we have not received, or, one of them is like a van. We have not received that van yet, but as me and Mike talked, probably as soon as we finish this meeting, he'll probably receive that van this afternoon or something. So having a 3-month waiting period on some of these could cause some issues for some of our vendors. So what we were kind of thinking is if we could get kind of approval based on receipt or delivery. Some of these, I'll have Mike address some of these, is a little bit for services too, but then that way we could make payment, and then when we come back in May, I can then report back to the board, okay, remember those 5 or 6 items we had? Okay, we received it, we made payment, and just kind of report it back to you. So I'll kind of have, we've got about 6 of those for $75,468.02. But I can have Mike address those also, just to kind of give you
Can you give that amount again on those 6?
$75,468.02.
Okay.
As Dennis said, we do have purchase orders and contracts, so these have went through the Purchasing Act and have been bid out, these 6 items. The first 2 is one is on the vehicle that we had planned to purchase when mileage got to a certain part of other vehicles, so now we're at this part in 2015 to do that. Also then there's a partition we put inside because it is a inmate transport vehicle, so that's what is the number 1. We did buy through our sort team, being able to have protective gear for our staff. Again, that's bid out through the Purchasing Act, and that was Galls was the low bid on that. Also on 2 issues that are on contracts, the software for Renovo needs to be supported, so that in the future we will get any type of support. Also, we're pre-ordering handsets. This is our video visitation system, and this is what the cost would be for the next over the next year, well, really 2 years, for this type of service. The last that we talked about in the last JPA 3 months ago, we do some work on the floors in our staff dining area to put that down. I believe Commissioner Roma came out yesterday, and we'll take a look at that. And then the last is we did not put a range in the large kitchen for our classes for the inmate, what do you call that, food service program. So using a small a commercial but gas range is something that the Southeast Community College would like to have when they need to go to cooktop on their classes. They do that twice a week. We're also doing some induction cooking. So again, this was bid out, and this company, Samtel and Sons, was the low bid, and we're real pleased to have them in. But who knows, that may show up a month from now, or like Dennis said, this afternoon. So we're asking the JPA to allow us to produce everything with Dennis to be able to pay for that.
Roma?
Yeah. Does it create any awkwardness in accounting or in dealing with our vendor if we meet quarterly and delay or whatever? Would it be better if we could have meetings as is necessary to approve these?
Well, I think that's.
Go ahead.
I think that's your call. We had always been meeting monthly, and for the most part, we are kind of winding down. So we probably will not have as many as we have today. But we're just trying to come up with a way to make payment without the company waiting for 3 months.
Doug?
Well, the fact is that when we met monthly, some of those meetings went 5 minutes or less.
Yeah.
Right? And so it didn't make much sense.
Right.
What would be the option to run these 2 together, Dennis? Then there would be a total for the quarter, and asterisk those that you have not received yet with a notation at the bottom that said have not received, and Mike could then report back that we've received those when you receive them. Then you will have permission to go forward with them by the body. It would be clearly notated that you had not received them. This saves you having to run 2 separate accounts, which if I was the public looking at it, I'd say, well, really your bills are $166,000.
Right.
Why are you separating them? It would put it together. Everybody would know what they are, but there would be notation on there.
Yeah, I can do
I
that.
like that idea, and what I had just penned out here is something to the effect of subject to receipt of the services and goods.
Yeah, I can do. I mean, that would not be a problem, because my plan would always be to, when we meet the next quarter, come
Right.
back and say, okay, remember those 6 items. We did receive them, or for some reason maybe we didn't receive something, and just kind of give you an update on.
That would also give the public and the people up here
Yeah.
the true picture of what we're actually okaying, and wouldn't make sure the vendors are not waiting for money.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
Okay, could we have a motion to that
Motion to
effect?
approve.
And this would be with the understanding that we're going to pay both, and that the last 6 would be subject to receipt of those goods and services.
And I second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Now, would you call the roll, please, Ann?
Emery?
Lori?
Yes.
Amundson?
Yes.
Hudkins?
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0.
Okay, audit.
Okay, so with the agenda that I sent out, I also attached a copy of the audit and a copy of the management letter. So, as far as the audit goes, we did have an unqualified opinion, which is really kind of a clean opinion. So a management letter didn't address anything. We're to the point where we're getting to the point where the audit runs really smooth because we don't have a whole lot of transactions actually happening anymore. So everything for the audit went good. So I just want to kind of, get that information out to you. And then also the clerk's office will have one on file. You can always go out to my web page too, or we've got them on a couple web pages. So if the public ever wants to read that thing, there's a couple options for them.
Okay. Is any action that we need to take?
I don't. Just to accept, maybe just a motion to accept the audit.
Okay.
Okay, move to accept.
It's been moved and seconded that we accept the audit. Further discussion? Not, call the roll, please.
Emery?
Yes.
Amundson?
Yes.
Hudkins?
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0.
Okay, is there anyone who wishes to make public comment? Mike, we haven't heard from you. I did want one of the
Speak to you a little bit about.
claims
Sure.
was a $68,000 for the storm sewer improvements. You want to kind of go over that a little bit?
I think remember that to bring Roma up, the two, if you remember the site after a 37-acre site, both sides were in more of a sloping lot,
Right.
which the architects really thought was good because the advantage of the building, you could not to go up a high rise. But you have to move water. So one of the things that they wanted to make sure they did was make sure we moved water appropriately on the west side as well as the east side. This was brought to the JPA two meetings ago, and it was put out for bid to actually put more conduit, or I call them washouts or culverts, that would be able to collect the water, because all the water from I-80 that moves to the south has to go through that area. So instead of it just running across the field flat, now it has to be channelized more or less to both sides of the property. So you're seeing today the first payment for that. They're completed, it's done, and they're now waiting for spring to put the scours in to keep so the grass will grow into the ditch and then move that water down. Who knows how much that would have been done beforehand, but they needed to see just how much water they were going to be moving, and it was probably to the advantage of the site to not let that wash out any further, and especially with spring rains on that one. So the JPA was good enough to say, go ahead and bid that, let's get that done. So Dennis, we put it on for bids to do that. So we're the only part we might have is on the east side. There is a fairly good wash on the very far side. That is a lot less money, but we'll look at it in the spring again and see if we need to do about 40 feet of conduit. I don't want to say conduit. I see so much electrical conduit, but more of culverts out there on that side. The parts of the lowlands, that's where that water goes out to the back, and so you need to get the water to it. So that's worked very well. It's been cold, so there's no water running right now, but we'll see how that works when the spring rains do come. Larry, to ask about the jail, we are running about 512. We are having a lower part. We reported to the county board last week of our population, and we usually see that downward hit in the winter. We had cold weather. Don't see a lot of new admissions. We are now just monitoring and trying to watch with the legislature regarding new sentencing calculations and how that will affect us. It will affect us. It may take a few months to see the ramifications, but there are going to be some large changes in regards to who comes to our county jails and who stays in county jails, who will get community supervision, and who may have to come back to jail if they have a revocation or technical violation. So even though the JPA doesn't see that every day, that is one of the things you were good about doing, is allowing us to build for the future. And I think the future is coming a little quicker than I think any of our board members or even the JPA would think was going to happen regarding population. So We'll get ready for the spring. We are doing more programming now, and it's because you allowed us to have the space, and then it's able to allow these agencies to come in and run programs inside the facility. So we're starting our fourth session of the food service classes with Southeast Community College, and we'll just keep looking at what best practices and what we can bring into the jail, and try to do what we can for the time we have the offender there, and get them ready for release.
Well, Mike, while you do have overall room in the facility, isn't, as you've expressed to the county board, one of your concerns is classification, and you're going to have a different mix of prisoners if the state starts bringing their prisoners out.
When the problems you can see, remember when we ran into size and space at the old facility, one of the issues that clearly came up was we couldn't have a classification system. We had to use every available bed no matter what your classification was. You built this facility so we can have a segregation area, which is, hopefully you don't use it very much. You need to lower numbers in there. But when you get into overcrowding, you'll just, a bed's a bed. And that's when things start unraveling. You're not as safe as you once were because you're moving people that shouldn't be together. So that's why we try to purposely build the facility where it would cap out at lower numbers. You have a certain amount of female offenders that we see in a year's time, same way with the male offenders. And I think that's what is traditional with any correctional facility, not just our state, is when you run into overcrowding and don't have the proper beds, you may be mixing geriatrics, you may have mental health issues with inmates that may have to then stay in general population, and then things just don't usually work out for the best on that. So we're hoping we can stay with our classification system all the way through this project, and we're building it to make sure that we stayed as empty as we could, just as the needs came, then you used them appropriately. And that takes everybody. It takes courts, it takes prosecutors, law enforcement, to look at actually who does need to be incarcerated, and because it's ultimately your responsibility to take care of it expense-wise. So you want to make sure those beds are built for the right population.
I think one of the examples that you gave us, that as far as classification being important, you may have somebody that's been adjudicated and at the state penitentiary, and then if they're moved back into our facility, you may have somebody in the general population that had to testify against them.
It happens all the time, and so that's why you want to have the different duplication of space. And we do have a lot of keep separates. That's the terminology, and so you do have those. We have those now with pretrial. You may have 2 or 3 co-defendants, just for safety of staff, safety of each other, keep people in the appropriate positions. And that's what I think the community has seen when they toured, is that we can break down that population. So we'll definitely, as we say, we'll watch the legislature and try to take their lead of what they're trying to do. So.
And we appreciate you because, you know, as the senators try to fix this problem, it's easy to take a look at overall capacity and say, hey, they can handle them out there, but you need to be over there explaining this to them as they try to seek a solution. And we appreciate the time that you do spend over there. Dennis, anything else?
I don't think so.
Okay. Setting for the next meeting would be May 26th. And Roma, you want to make a comment?
Yeah, and I wanted to say, Mike, hey, you really explained the whole situation to me yesterday when I was out there.
Great.
And I'm looking forward to March the 6th when I can go out there
Right.
again
Come
and
back.
share a meal that the
inmates do.
You bet.
Yeah, we'll have your walking shoes, and we'll get to do.
And maybe what we can do is look at the storm.
Yeah, that'd be good. It'd be a good time to get out. It was 1 degree the other day. I got
wanna
a
do
point to
that.
where it was at, but no, we go outside and take a look at that.
Okay,
Doug.
great.
Mike, also, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't say thanks to the Keno Committee for the fact that they put in a considerable chunk of money
Yeah.
to help with that program, the recidivism reduction program, I think is.
And that, Councilman, that is a super way of doing a one-time thing, maybe for a year,
Right.
2 year, and it allowed us to get momentum. We could get the right equipment the Southeast Community College
Right.
needed, and it is amazing how they'll start, looking at
There's
how the
definitely
cuts.
definitely a win-win for everybody, but I think they
that's
need
good,
to
and that's
be
good.
acknowledged that they were part of that issue.
Thank you, Commissioner Emery. Anything else for the good of the order? And the
No.
next meeting is slated for May 26th.
May 26th, and other than Doug will not be returning, So
It's been fun.
We thank you for your dedicated
Yeah.
service, and as a
you.
commissioner and as a member of this body, and just a good fellow to have in local government.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I move
Adjournment?
adjournment.
Second.
Okay, call the roll, please.
Emery?
Yes.
Amundson?
Yes.
Hudkins?
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you for your time and attention, and we need to run up the planning.